Well, good evening. Man, it feels like it's been a year since I've been up here. Well, this is the first Sunday that we have been back since the new year. And so I'm just wondering what you might have had on your New Year's resolution list. Now, this is just a random list I found online. Save money, exercise and get fit, find a better job, help others, travel, stop procrastinating, enjoy life. I don't know maybe what you put on your New Year's resolution, but it might not have been feel more hate. This morning, or I guess this is really the evening, I say that every time. This evening, we're going to talk about hate. And we're going to talk about some things that God hates. And our next couple of lessons, at least that I get to be here for, will be trying to understand some of the things that God hates. Some of the things that God is against. Some of the things that God does not like. Proverbs 6 will tell us exactly that. What does God hate? Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 16, it says there are 6 things that the Lord hates. So we have a great God, we have a wonderful God, and He is love, and amen to that. He is the ultimate expression of love. But I believe that the Lord is also one of the ultimate expressions of hatred. There are things that God hates from His very being. We might get into why that is. Some of it is that they are contrary to His nature. Some of it is because they cause destruction and pain and death and separation. But God hates these things. If you'll notice as we read through them, that there is quite a bit of imagery for a physical body as we go through here. We're going to break some of this down as we go. But Proverbs 6, verse 16 says, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to Him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. These are the things that God hates. These are the things that cause God to feel not love, but hatred. Hatred against these sins, these things. I don't know if you've looked down this list, but those are things that I can be a part of. And it's really easy to read down this list and go, wow, look at all those guys out there, the lying tongue, I know a bunch of liars, and hands that shed innocent blood. I mean, how more prevalent can you get in our culture today? There are hands shedding innocent blood day in and day out. There are false witnesses and lies and discord being sown. And it is very easy to look out there and say, you know what, man, look at all those things that God hates. But what we're going to hopefully be doing in this study is realizing that these things are in us. These things are in us. Romans chapter 8 will talk about how we are enemies of God and how the Spirit comes and we are made into His image. We are following His Spirit, and we no longer do these things. We leave behind the things of our past self, leave behind our past life. And in Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, it says, but God shows His love for us that while we were yet enemies, while we were sinners, while we were these people doing these things that God hates, this is when Christ has died for us. And so now let's not look out, but let's look in at these things. The first thing that we're going to look at is the haughty eyes. Haughty eyes. I know that's a fun word to say. It's kind of hard to say sometimes. And it's not good looking. It's a bad word. It's not good looking eyes. It's not just anyways. These eyes that are haughty, eyes that are puffed up, eyes that are conceited, eyes that are prideful. The question is, what's so bad about pride? What's so bad about being haughty? What's so bad about being full of yourself? Well, Proverbs chapter 16 will tell us. Proverbs 16 and verse 5. Why is pride so dangerous? Why is this a big deal? Why is this something that we need to have a sermon on, of all things? Because in Proverbs 16 and verse 5 rather, it says, everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Is an abomination to the Lord. Proverbs tells us very clearly that God is against. God has enmity with those who are proud, with those who are arrogant, with those who are haughty. Proverbs 16, verse 18 says, pride goes before destruction. So if enmity with God isn't a big enough motivator, there is destruction in your life that will come because of your pride. I hope tonight to really dissect this idea of pride with you. So the question is this: pride, what does that look like in my life? Here are 6 different, I wouldn't say definitions of pride, but there are going to be 6 different things that help us understand where pride might show up in our lives. Pride is really an important thing because in 1 Timothy, we have an exhortation to not be puffed up. But the reason why he gives there, Paul gives to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 6, it says, he must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. The condemnation of the devil is pride. The condemnation that the enemy of God, that is his own sin. That is his own realm of condemnation. That is what he will be condemned for, is the sin of pride. 1 Timothy 3:6 says that if you want to be like Jesus, do different things. But if you want to be like Satan, be prideful. Be puffed up. Put yourself in the place of God. Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 11 says, the eyes of the arrogant will be humbled, and human pride will be brought low. The Lord alone will be exalted in that day. There are tons of warnings for our own destruction. There are tons of warnings for our own fall, our own detriment, having pride, but ultimately it is enmity with God. Ultimately, that is the reason we want to stay away from pride. So 6 definitions of pride here, 6 different ways it might manifest in our life. The first one is self-exaltation. Self-exaltation. Giving credit to yourself. Patting yourself on the back. So the question is, in your own mind, do you exalt yourself above others? Do you exalt yourself above others? This might show up in many different ways. You might have to make sure that you're rewarded for your good deeds. That might be a form of pride, where I have to get what I deserve. When I do good things, I need to get the credit and the praise for that. I need that. Sometimes, are you so concerned with what I want, what I need, that you lose sight of others? Sometimes when you are self-exalting in your pride, you make sure you're the center of attention. You make sure the eyes are on you. That need to be at the center of attention, it might be one way pride is rearing its head in your life. You might jump into conversations, jump into groups, trying to make you be the focus of the moment, focus of the conversation. What you are thinking, what you want to talk about. Now, not all of this is always a bad thing. But pride, when we notice that this is something that I'm driven to do, because I'm thinking about myself, because I care about myself, because it's about me, we need to take a step back and say, you know what, I think this might be a place where I can repent. Pride is elevating yourself to a status above. I am the greatest. I am the smartest. I do it better. That's one way that keeps me all the time is I gave this demonstration this morning in Bible class, was sometimes I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos for building our house. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there, and sometimes you watch some people and you're like, man, I could have done that way better than that guy. I mean, look at the end result of what they did. That is horrible. I could have done it better. And if we let that go too far, that can be a source of pride in our lives. So I could have done it better than them. I can outperform someone else. I can outperform one of my coworkers. I can do it better than these people. And now that's not always a bad thing, but that is a source of pride where it can show up and be pointing the finger at yourself oh, look how much better I am, how much above someone else I am. I wanted to read you this quote. It's long, and it'll be up on the slides behind me. It's from Mere Christianity. The essential vice, the utmost evil, is pride. Unchastity, anger, greed, drunkenness, and all that are mere flea bites in comparison. It was through pride that the devil became the devil. Pride gets no pleasure out of having something. It's not about having things. Only out of having more of it than the next man. We say that people are proud of being rich or clever or good looking, but they are not. They are proud of being richer or cleverer or better looking than the next guy. If someone else becomes equally rich or clever or good looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. It is the comparison that makes you proud. The pleasure of being above the rest. The pleasure of saying, oh, I am better than, or I am better at this than someone else. In our own thoughts and our own minds, putting ourselves on a pedestal. It's the worker that thinks he or she is better or faster than another. A mother who pats herself on the back for when her children are better behaved. A preacher who thinks he could have preached that sermon better. The driver that thinks everybody should follow their example. I know how to do it. You should all follow me. The boss that emphasizes their talents, their achievements over that of his employees, thinking that I am way better at this job than you guys. It's the pride of I am the best, or they aren't as good as I am. Self-exaltation. Another way that this might show up, and again, we'll have to talk about this a little bit, is self-promotion. Self-promotion. The first one, self-exaltation, is more of in our own hearts, in our own minds, exalting ourselves, putting ourselves in a higher position than someone else. Self-promotion, at least the way that I would like to describe it, is when you want other people to put you on that pedestal. You want other people to lift you up and give you that validation. Proverbs 27, verse 2, it does say, let another praise you and not your own mouth, someone else and not your own lips. And that is true. It is true that I should be singing my own praise. But when someone is dependent and then needing that validation from other people to praise them is when we get in trouble, is when pride may show up. Ephesians 6:6 talks about not being men pleasers, not being people that do things just so we can please other people. Because sometimes when we do that, we are ultimately, pridefully coming back to me. I want them to lift me up. I want them to give me compliments or accolades or praise. I need people to validate me is a prideful response. Again, I think we can see that we have God and He gives us value, not other people. But are you caught in the prideful pursuit of pleasing people? I want to please people. I'm a people pleaser. That's me. I like to please people. It's nice to have people like you and have people be your friend. But that can be a source of pride when that's what we are driven by. People liking us, people inviting us over to their house, or people being our friend, or whatever that looks like for you. We can recognize when pride comes from inside someone, inside your own mind, and puffing ourselves up. But pride also shows up when you're seeking the praise of others. Pride may not be about my inner thoughts, about me being superior to other people, but it's a desire and craving for people to praise us. We may even present ourselves. And again, pride is deceptive. We might present ourselves in such a way that people can, we'll put it this way, we are putting on a mask. We're putting our best foot forward. I think the best example, the best illustration that I had for this one was maybe that first date. You know, you go on that first date and you put your best foot forward is what it's called. But in a sense, that's a prideful way of doing things because you're trying to cover up everything else and be the best person you can be and present yourself as, maybe not even someone you're not, but present yourself as a good catch. But sometimes being prideful is deceiving people, trying to do good things so that people will see your good works and therefore appreciate and encourage and praise you. Pride causes us to run from our weaknesses, run from this idea that I fail. Pride says we have to be perfect. I think I can be perfect. And anytime I am not perfect, I am utterly destroyed. And that might be a couple bullets down the way, but this idea of pride is unable to deal with weakness. Because sometimes we get defensive because of our pride. Sometimes we are so consumed with ourselves that nothing else really matters. Self-promotion, where you try to put your best foot forward so that people will praise you. When you do good things, not because you know we should be doing good things, but you're doing that out of the attitude of, I hope someone sees me. Oh, I only clean the church when there are other people there so they can see me pushing the broom. I only do these things when other people are visible so I get the praise for that. And I don't think that we, as a congregation, have a problem with that. But that is a way that pride can show up. Unlike when Jesus says, when in your giving, you're doing this great act of generosity. Do not let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. What he's saying there is you're not trying to draw attention to yourself. When he talks about praying, you got to pray and put on sackcloth and ashes, stand on the street corners and say, look at me, I'm praying and fasting. Because that's a form of pride. Look at me. Self-promotion. Look at how good I am. Look at how good I'm doing. Another way that pride might show up in our lives is self-justification. Self-justification. One of the ways, again, the way that it's kind of framed is self-exaltation is me in my mind. Self-promotion is me and the people around me. I'm going to let them lift me up and praise me. And self-justification is kind of your attitude toward God. A prideful attitude toward God of either I have done so good, I am justified, I can justify myself. God doesn't need to do that for me. Or I have done so good, I have served God so faithfully, God should reward me being puffed up in spirit rather than poor in spirit. Another way this might show up is a need to be right. And again, I am talking to a mirror right now. I love being right. That is why it is great to be right. I mean, you have an argument with your sister and you're right. It's like, man, you ain't got nothing on me. I am right now.
Amen.
But sometimes that is showing up as a prideful response of, I need to be right. When you have that need of, man, I gotta be right. And you feel that in yourself. That might be an indication, just a red flag of, hey, check yourself here. Check yourself. You're walking pridefully. You're needing to be right. You're needing to be the one that is in the source of power here. The position of power. Self-justification. Sometimes this might show up as perfectionism. Perfectionism. Pride in yourself thinking, I am. Sometimes we can delude ourselves and think, well, I am all that in a bag of chips. I'm so good. I can justify myself because of how good I am. And again, maybe we wouldn't say that's what our minds are saying to ourselves. But it might show up in little ways. You try to be perfect. Sometimes we can't handle weakness, or we can't handle being wrong because we're too prideful to accept that, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. Now, the next three ways that pride can show up are I don't know if not anti-pride would be a good way of putting it, but they're pride in reverse. They're pride in reverse. You normally think of pride as someone who is bolstering themselves and putting themselves on a pedestal. But sometimes pride is about what C.S. Lewis said. It's about comparing yourself to someone else. Sometimes pride shows up in the way we self-depreciate. Self-depreciation. In our own thoughts, again, this is kind of mirroring the self-exaltation, but in a negative sense. Sometimes in our own thoughts, we beat ourselves up, and kick ourselves to the ground, and kick ourselves to the curb because we believe that deep down, I can be perfect. And yes, through the grace of God, with the Spirit, we can be. But when we think it's my job, it's me that's going to be perfect, and anytime I fail, that is the end of the world. We crush ourselves. You're so concerned with you and your performance and you being perfect and you being the best and you doing so good on everything. And in your own thoughts, you have this standard. And this standard is, I have to perform to here. And you say, I am the standard and what I think goes. And sometimes we are self-depreciating because you want to do better so badly that you feel like if I am not doing here, I am not fulfilled. Pride sometimes shows itself as self-depreciation, where we shut ourselves down, and it's still a prideful pursuit. The next thing, and these all kind of go together, but it's the opposite again of the first three, self-demotion. Self-demotion. When you compare yourselves to others and say, well, man, I'm just not as good as them. I just can't do it as good. I can't do it as well. I am not up to their standard. And again, you might think, well, how is that pride? How am I being prideful when I am looking at someone else and saying, I'm not as good as they are? Because this comparison is when you are concerning yourself with how you relate to other people. You are concerning yourself and saying, you know what? I want to be better than them, but I'm not. I want to be up there at their level, but I'm not. And so, again, maybe that's a hard comparison to make, a hard connection to make there. But the idea is I am behind. I want myself to be up there so that I can be a part of the normal people, a part of the people that can perform well. And so I am so focused on myself and how terrible I am and how I don't compare, I don't measure up to other people. That you're so concerned with yourself, but you're not concerned with serving other people with what you have. The last thing is self-condemnation. Self-condemnation. And again, I think this is trying to mirror the self-justification, but the self-condemnation is about, again, living up to your own standards. Sometimes we hear the Word of God, and we say, you know what, my standards are higher, my standards are better. I'm going to live up to my own standards. We put ourselves in the place of God, and when we don't measure up to our own measure, our own rule, we condemn ourselves. And we say, man, I didn't get that right. But what this is you are putting yourself in the position of judge. You are putting yourself in the position of who gets to decide what is right and wrong. And again, I think there are two sides to the coin to how we can deal with pride. One of them is accepting that we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have it all. We're never going to be that perfectly straight line. But on the other hand, we don't have to be, because God is. We are in pursuit of imitating Christ and walking with Him and walking faithfully in the light. But that's not about me. That's not about my performance. That's not about how I can do these things. It's about how in the Spirit I live. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 5 says, I will boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weaknesses. Even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would be speaking the truth. The final, I guess, kind of point before we get into the more application part of this is sometimes, as Paul is trying to say here, we don't need to focus on the truth. We need to focus on the good things we can do, the good things we can bring about. Because again, Paul, and I'm not saying that the truth is bad, that we should focus on the truth, but what Paul is saying here is, I don't boast. I choose not to do that. The truth is, I can boast. The truth is, I am a great preacher. The truth is, my name is Paul. I've written so many letters to the church. My name is Paul. I am one of the top, I don't even want to call it the top dogs among all the Christians. That's me. I am one of the apostles of the apostles. I am this guy that's going to go out there. I'm going to write a quarter of the New Testament. I'm going to be, or more, is in my handwriting. And he said, I would be speaking the truth. Sometimes in our lives we think, oh, if it's the truth, well, then I can go ahead and be prideful because that is the truth. I am better than that guy. I can do a better job than that person. I am so much better. I know what right and wrong is. But Paul says, I refrain so that no one will think more of me than it is warranted by what I do. Pride will kill. Pride is something that is in each of us, and hopefully we've been able to find a couple different places where pride has crept in to our behaviors, to our thoughts, to how we are living with one another, living as the church of God. So, that's the, I don't know what you want to call that, what we're talking about is pride. And now the time and the lesson is this. What do we do about it? What do we do about this? I know I might have been able to maybe to bring out some of the ways that you might struggle with pride in your life, because we all do. It's something, again, if Satan, the king of sin, the king of temptation, falls to it, I'm pretty sure that's in his arsenal. He's used it on each and every one of us. So the pride, the question is what we do about this. The first thing is we need to be like God. I know we want to stay away from this idea that God hates anything, but God does feel strong hatred for pride. And I think if we develop the same kind of feeling, the same attitude toward pride that God has, it would be something that we would be able to recognize in ourselves and root out. We need to realize that we are at war, and this is one of the greatest weapons against us. Again, it's one of the, when all of the sins are kind of boiled down, we have the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. One of the greatest weapons in the arsenal of Satan, and let us hate it in ourselves. Let us have a nice long talk. Have a nice long talk with ourselves and our pride, and figure out how we have been falling. How we have been living with pride. Just little pieces of it walking around with us. Set yourself against the prideful thoughts, the prideful attitudes, the prideful patterns, the prideful feelings, the prideful behaviors that you exhibit. Because each and every one of us has one place that we can work on, if not many. The next thing is again, it's a very difficult, I would say, line to cross. We need to hate pride in others, specifically those in the church. Specifically those around us. We need to be able to say, you know what, I hate the fact that this sin is evident. There's nothing that we can do about the fact that sin is reigning in this world. Satan is the ruler of the prince of the air, but he has been defeated. But right now we are living in the time in which his darts reign. Hate pride in others as well, and help people overcome that. The point here is not that we hate the people and say, well, I just can't believe how prideful you would be. The point here is, lead them to Jesus. Lead them to the only person that has a remedy for the pride that they are exhibiting, the pride that they are caught up in. Take them to Jesus and show them how Jesus is helping you to defeat the pride in your life. But again, we have to be fighting that fight in the first place for us to bring someone else into that as well. The final thing that we want to do is look to Jesus. The word that has been used a couple different times, 1 Timothy 3, has been, puffed up. Puffing yourself up. The idea, the mental picture that I have when I think about this is like a balloon that's just puffed up with air. You just blow it up. There's nothing in it. There's no substance in there. The balloon didn't get any bigger. It's still the same rubber. It is stretched a little bit. It takes up more space, but it's been puffed up. It's been puffed up. There is no substance that has been added. Just air. Being puffed up. But let's look to Jesus. Because sometimes when we think about pride, it's about us comparing ourselves to someone else. Us saying, oh, look, I'm better than, or richer than, or we're better looking, or we're better at these things than someone else. Let's look at Jesus. Let's look to Jesus. This is something that we read a couple weeks ago on a Wednesday night. But Philippians 2, chapter 5 says this. Philippians 2:5 says, "Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped." Again, if we think, oh man, my accomplishments are great, I don't know, you put anything in there, my achievements, my performance, anything you want, this is so great. I can take pride in this. Remember that if you compare yourself to Jesus, everything, no one measures up. I don't think that's the point here. I don't think that the thing is well, the way we combat pride is compare ourselves to Jesus, and that'll just put us in our place and just ground us into the ground so we can know that you are nothing like Jesus. But I think the point is this. Have this mind which was in yourself, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, though he had every claim to pride, every claim to be puffed up, but he wouldn't be filled with nothingness. He would be filled with the stuff. I mean, he would be completely overflowing with glory. Again, puffed up is a false sense of glory. But Jesus was full of glory. He was in the form of God. He did not count it. He did not credit it. He did not consider it. He did not put himself in a position where he could consider being equal with God. So when we think about ourselves, everything we've done, every gift that we have, let's do like Jesus and not consider, not count, not credit ourselves to being more than we are. Because Paul says in Romans chapter 12, this is where we will mostly end this lesson in Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 3 says, "For by the grace given me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned." And so, again, verse 9, jumping down to Romans 12, "Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil, and hold fast to what is good." So consider Jesus. If you feel like you want to be proud, prideful, puffed up, consider that Jesus had actual substance, and he still did not consider that something to be grasped, something to be held on to, something to be proud of, to hold over other people. But what did Jesus do? Jesus picked up a towel. Jesus picked up a towel. So when you consider yourself great, find a towel. When you consider yourself above others, find a way to serve them. It'll fix a lot of your pride issues. Consider the cross. Again, Isaac Watts, that great song we sing, "When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and I pour contempt. I pour loathing. I pour hatred on my pride because it says I am something. I am so great. I am the one that this all relies on." And finally, consider our condition without him. Ephesians chapter 2 says that grace, that salvation, that all these wonderful blessings that come from God are not of works that anyone should boast. Are not of works that anyone should boast. So if you think about boasting, consider that we did nothing. Ephesians 2 verse 8 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not your own doing, it is a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast." Our condition was being saved by grace through faith. Being saved by Jesus and what he did, not by what we did. Not by how good we were, not by how great we were. When you consider your pride, consider Jesus and how he was perfect. He was straight. He was the measure of faith. He fulfilled the law perfectly. He was without sin. And yet he did not hold that over people. He did not put himself above people. In fact, he put himself below people and washed their feet. So the question, what does God hate? God hates pride. Let's set our pride aside. Let's walk with him humbly. Let's walk with him faithfully. At the end of the lesson, we want to offer this invitation. The invitation is this. If you are struggling with your pride and you need prayers, if you'd like to respond publicly, we give you that opportunity. But the other option is, if you've been walking in darkness, if you've been walking by your own pride and do not have Jesus, you don't have that saving grace, the saving blood of Jesus that comes from the cross, and you've not been connected with that in baptism, then we invite you, whatever your need is, to come forward as we stand and sing.